Let's go. All right. We're in 47, so we're moving right along here. Actually, probably going to have a week or two we're going to need to fill before the Memorial Day break and then the summer. So I'm not going to try to drag it out. I mean, I could talk forever about the most useless and mundane stuff, but like I'm about to do right now. I was,
You said you didn't have anything.
well, I didn't have anything that I made up off the top of my head right now, but I was thinking about the solar system and our habitable zone, the habitable zone. Oh, actually, before that, I said last week that Egypt was the only nation that recognized Israel. I was wrong. There's the list. Those are the list of Arab nations that have recognized Israel. Those are it. I actually didn't know about, I forgot about Jordan. I remember that now. Turkey, I didn't know that. The Emirates, I didn't even know Cyprus was an Arab nation. Was considered an Arab nation. But that's the list. I really hope that out of this whole nonsense with Iran, if that ends the way that I hope it will, there will be a little wave of Arab nations that will recognize Israel and that region can move on. I mean, they all have back channels. You know, it's for public. The supposed hostility is public. It's for public domain. In private, they can't afford that sort of thing, so they're in communication with each other all the time.
I have my doubts about Iran just because, well, in the Ezekiel's battle of God and Magog, Iran is participating in that battle against Israel.
Well, that's somewhere between now and 1,000 years from now.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, all right, here's our solar system. And I was thinking about the nature of the planets and the layout of the thing. And you notice that outside of Mars, which one is Mars? It's so small I can't see it. Yep, there's the Earth. I don't know why it's green. It should be blue. What? This one here? Yeah, so this is Mars. That's the last of the rocky planets. There's 4 rocky planets. Can anybody name them?
Apparently,
The first
Venus, Earth, and Mars. I don't know about Mercury. I don't think anybody can equal something else.
Oh, it's a rocky planet, yeah.
It is.
Yeah, the 4 inner planets are rocky, and the 4 outers are either gas or ice giants. And so, you know, that's interesting. And what you look into this, what you'll find out is that that makes a difference. You'll notice these asteroid belts. You have the Kuiper belt outside of Neptune, which is the farthest out planet. It's a belt of basically debris, planetary debris, asteroids, ice, and so on and so forth, I think. And then you have what's called the asteroid belt right here, which is just inside of Jupiter. And so what happens is, I think the prevailing opinion is, secular opinion, these outer giants, particularly Jupiter, they stabilize these belts of planetary debris so that they don't move into the solar system. These big planets attract those bodies. And so what you end up with then is in the region of rocky planets, you have an area that's free of debris because it got collected by, for example, Jupiter more than any of them. And so it stabilizes, it basically counteracts the sun, the pull of the sun, the gravitational force of the sun to stabilize these belts of planetary debris, not to mention any stuff from the Oort cloud, which is way, way out, these long period comets and so forth that come streaming through. Jupiter is part of the Kuiper belt. It's considered a dwarf planet in the Kuiper belt, and it's got this weird elliptical orbit that goes like this, hundreds of years long. But you know, that's a remarkable thing. We have these 4 giants that stabilize our solar system. Are they? If we didn't have those, would we have? What would it be? My guess is not what we have. So it appears as if everything goes into, everything is just the way that it is, so that we have a nice, stable, habitable zone. And we're nestled right in the middle of it, just inside of Mars, just outside of Venus. And if you wonder what happens if you don't have, well, if you wonder what happens when asteroids and so forth are raining down on you constantly, you can look at the moon. Put surface in so I don't get well, I don't know if that's going to help. Be ready to close this. Something's going on with the internet. Robert?
Pluto is supposed to be considered at the outside of that chip that
It's considered part of the Kuiper belt. I don't know what happened this morning, but this thing is doing this. We may not be because I got a wire right here. I don't know what's going on. Well, anyway, if you look at the surface of the moon, it's just marked up with asteroid hits everywhere, craters all over the place. And that's because that's the effect of these. Oh, wow. What did that do? Now it's. Oh, no. So, look at it. Yeah, that's what it looks like. That's the effect of strikes. Why don't we have that? I mean, we do have asteroid strikes, but that's unlivable just by virtue. Yeah. So we have, not only do we have these big gas and ice giants, Jupiter is how many times bigger than the Earth in terms of mass? It's tremendous. But we also have that atmosphere that in which these asteroids get split apart and burn up and so on and so forth, that protect the Earth from impacts. So there's this too, right? I mean, man, it sure seems like everything is just what it is. You got these asteroids, these belts don't fly out apart and just pervade the solar system. They orbit the sun in predictable fashion, like planets do, and they just stay out there. And these planets, I think, have a lot to do with it. So this is what they look like. Here's Jupiter. They got a problem with scale here, but here's Neptune right here. Here's the Kuiper belt outside of it, where Pluto is now. Pluto got relegated to being a dwarf planet. It got kicked out of planet status, and it's considered a product of it's considered a member of the Kuiper belt. Just basically,
I have to tell you about where we used to live in Maine. Between Presque Isle and Fulton, which was the county seat, they had these the planetary system to scale. Okay, so the sun was at the University of Maine, and then you had all the planets, the size, the scale, the approximate thing, all going along Route 1 in Maine. And then you get to the rest area in Fulton, you go inside there and you have Pluto, which is a ping pong ball.
Yeah. Pluto is 4 billion miles. Neptune is 2.5 billion miles, something like that. So a single astronomical unit is 93 million miles, the distance from the Earth to the sun. So they measure the distances in astronomical units, and I think with 30 to 50 astronomical units or something like those planets are. But the scale, the size of these bodies is really incredible. Okay. Genesis chapter 4.
Chapter 1.
Genesis chapter 47.
Yeah.
I did say 4. Why did I say 4? That's a genealogy. I don't want to go back to 4.
It's just amazing what you just shared with it. Things that we don't think about that are keeping us alive.
We live in a region of the solar system that's kind of nestled where there's not You know, we don't have, planets going supernova. I mean, stars going supernova. It's a very calm part of it's just far enough out. We're 26,000 light years away from the galactic center, which is a cauldron of, it's a black hole with these radiation of planets, but we're just far enough out, but not too far out. The density of the density of the stars is I think they're on average 4 light years away from each other. So it's not too close.
Such intelligence, such design.
The density of matter in stellar space, outside of outside of the influence of the sun is 1 atom per cubic centimeter. And if you get outside of the solar, the Milky Way, outside of our galaxy, between galaxies, it's 1 atom every cubic meter or something like that. So there's very little out there. It is just dead nothingness. All of which I think I think it all has to be that way. That's what I think. Is anybody following the discoveries of the James Webb Telescope? There's some phenomenal stuff coming out. And one of the great assumptions.
That picture is that it's a Jupiter picture.
One of the great assumptions that we always make, and this is true with evolutionary theory as well, is that the forces and the physics and so forth, the geological forces in play today have been exactly what they've always been. And so you can extrapolate backward from the processes of today all the way back through time. And I've always disputed how do you know what forces were in play? You say 4 billion, let's just go with your timescales. 4 billion years ago. You just assume that. And so we've always had this this very established theory to the point of being unquestioned, like neo-Darwinism of the Big Bang as the origin of the universe. It's been unquestioned my entire life, back before the Big Bang and after the Big Bang, and so on and so forth. And the assumption has always been that physics, the universal laws and the constants, have always been the same from now all the way back to the beginning of what they call to the Big Bang. And now with the James Webb Telescope, they're discovering galaxies out there that are impossible to exist, implying that the physics, I could be wrong, but I think implying that the physics was different in the past. They should not be there, to the point where a famous scientist said within the last, 10 years, looking at those galaxies, that's not our universe. Meaning the laws that generated those galaxies aren't the same laws that we see in play today. Or all bets, you always say you treat these things as established, proven science that's not really disputed until you make the next discovery, and it undoes whatever your paradigm is. And that's Thomas Kuhn, who was a philosopher of science, who wrote a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And he argued that, I think I got this right, he argued that science operates in sort of unquestioned paradigms that they don't want to break out of. And so even when there's cracks that appear in the paradigm and they become to be invalidated, science will hold on to those things until they simply can't, and then the paradigm shatters and some other paradigm takes its place. And so I think we might be seeing exactly that happen with the Big Bang. And I don't have any strong opinion about this. God originated the universe somehow, and he didn't originate it by throwing matter into already existing space, because that's the whole point. There was no already existing space. He made the space. So he couldn't make it over there because there was no there. He just simply I don't know, inflated it. And that kind of sounds like a Big Bang, an inflationary universe. Sure. But you guys have been telling me my entire life that nobody can question the Big Bang. Well, now you're doing it, I think. Or it's shattering your paradigm. And now are we in the process of seeing a new paradigm take its place? But I think the fundamental flaw in these paradigms is they always operate from the assumption, from uniformitarian thinking, that the forces at play today and the physics at play today and the universal constants and everything else was always the same all the way through the past. So when you make an observation of what you call something from 13.8 billion years ago, you can wind forward and you can wind backward and figure out what happened, unless the physics changed. Because I don't know, you got this God who can do anything he wants, and it's unpredictable. So you have an end up in not only do you not live in a predictable universe, potentially you live in a very, very unpredictable universe. So I wonder someday if the first law of thermodynamics is eventually going to become invalidated. Conservation of matter and energy. The amount of matter and energy in the universe is a constant. I hope I'm not talking like an idiot right now, but I can't get to the internet because something's wrong with me. I think that's the first law. The amount of matter in it plus energy in the universe is constant. Matter plus energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can just be converted from one to the other. That's the law of conservation of matter and energy. Inertia, the tendency towards disorder, unless there's an outside power that's doing work on the system that's increasing order. Huh?
That was entropy.
Entropy, that's the second one. What did I say?
It's inertia.
Oh, I meant entropy, excuse me. Yeah. Yeah. So the amount of order in a closed system must always decrease unless work is done on the system. So we're heading towards an equilibrium state of even temperature across the universe where no work, where that's it. That's the idea. Unless somebody is tinkering with the system, unless somebody is injecting new matter into the universe. I don't have any idea, but just don't be so confident. It's science. It's not philosophy. There is nothing proven. You have postulates and you test these things, and to the best of our knowledge now and our ability to test it, this appears to be how this thing happened. But you always hold it tentative. And
what you're saying reminds me of Psalm 2, where the kings of the earth gather against God, and God looks at them and laughs.
Yeah.
well, physics is honest. They get this new information and they will adjust. So that's fine. I think physics has some humility. I mean, it's a very arrogant field because it wants to explain everything, and including supposedly so-called God. But there's also this humility where the next observation might undo the past, and then everybody goes looking at it to either validate or invalidate it. But in the world of biological evolution, that paradigm doesn't operate. It's this almost religious devotion to these beliefs, unless uniformitarianism isn't true.
Our confidence needs to be in the word of God.
Yeah.
So why would more energy or matter added to the system that's decaying so slowly?
Why would you need to have more matter? I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying we have a law, a universal law in this universe, in this closed system, that the amount of matter plus energy in the universe is a constant. And so all you have is the conversion, E equals MC squared. All you have is the conversion of matter to energy, but it's a constant. At the end of the thing, you have the same amount of stuff. And I'm just saying, why would you should hold that postulate tentatively. You cannot say anything for sure about what happened on their time scale 13.8 billion years ago. Because when I remember 20 billion as the age of the universe. Now it's 13.8 or 13.4 or something like that. What are you saying?
Oh, I was saying, I thought you were saying more is being injected currently to have
No.
that other galaxy exist, which didn't make sense in my head, but that's.
Yeah, let's just say that they're right about these galaxies. And I'm not saying anything about it. I'm just reading, I'm just watching their stuff. And you have these galaxies that just seem impossible. How did they get there,
Yeah, but past tense, yeah.
right? Did they get there at the, are they a product of the evolution of this universe? However fast it happened.
But physically it doesn't make sense.
Or was it another creative act after that moment? Because we commonly say that God created once and that's it. I don't know about that.
I mean,
I-
over time was made, I mean, do what he wants.
You know, I don't know. I wasn't there. He didn't consult me and he's not telling me now what he did. And science doesn't know.
In regard to the amount of matter, energy. It's constantly whatever God chooses, and he always chooses just right.
Yeah. Yep. All right, that's enough. 9:45. We're in chapter 47, verse 11 or so. This is the great move from Canaan here down to Goshen here for what will be the Israelites. Jacob's family, the 12 tribes, the 12 patriarchs, are embarking on the great odyssey of a 400 and some odd years period of slavery that they don't see coming. So they're in salvation. Their move to Egypt is salvation. And it is. God is saving them from a famine that probably he himself caused, because for precisely this reason, he wants them in Egypt, and this is the way on the ground. So that's what it's called. The proximate cause. Am I using these words right? Laura, what's the meaning of proximate cause?
I was thinking about something else.
Oh, I caught you.
We keep that too. Huh? Me too.
I was sitting, I told the story before. What's going on here? I don't understand.
I don't think it's the internet, because I'm not having a problem on my phone. I think.
You're using Wi-Fi. This is the wire.
Okay.
Huh?
Be the same thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Site can't be reached. Maybe we'll reboot the router. Anyway, maybe if I use already, I don't know why we care. Well, while it's deciding whether to give me what I want here. Site can't be reached.
Okay, let me done that go.
Oh, let's do that. You think about that. Nice catch.
Oh, I just heard what somebody else said, the expert.
An event or action that directly, closely, and in continuous sequence produces a specific injury or result. So the proximate cause of the Israelites going to Egypt is famine, national survival, family survival. But what's the higher level cause? The higher level cause, we'll just use those stupid words, is God wanting them in Egypt to fulfill the covenant requirement of Genesis chapter 15, which is your family will be strangers in a land that is not their own, where they will be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. But I will judge the nation whom they serve, and afterward they will come out with many possessions. Very general statement. God outlined his plan for the next 500 or 600 years, whatever the number is, in very general fashion in Genesis chapter 15. Very just tantalizing. So Abraham can wake up from his stupor in that chapter and go, wait, what? What's the nation? Where are they going? Why do they got to be slaves? How are they going to get there? When are they going to, am I going there? What, all these questions.
I understand it from God's point of view, the big picture. From the smaller point of view, man's picture. Jacob was in the land continued in the land long after,
Hmm.
the famine, never went back. They took him back to the land to bury him, but they came back to Egypt instead of staying in the land of Canaan. And obviously it's all because of God's design. But still, you would think that being a nomadic people, that they would return to where they had been.
Not when you're the recipient of every blessing the Egyptians are willing to give you.
That's true.
Well, the Egyptians did.
Yeah, you did.
They were not, the Israelites were not.
Well, the Egyptian, that's the dirty little secret. That's the elephant in the room, right? The Israelites came in as slaves. Joseph was already had the status of slave, but the position of governor. So when his family came in, they also all inherited his slave status. So all that needs to happen is for a pharaoh to arise who just refuses to acknowledge their position because of Joseph, and now that slave status is all they got. Going on. Wonder if I pull out the wire, if it would get better. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it on Zoom.
Yeah, I know. Any fixes I have are. try to put it-
Yeah, try it. That's right. That's right. Have you changed the battery?
Yeah.
Go change the battery in your car. Maybe the internet will get better. That's what everybody says. Okay, so here we are. That's the situation. So Jacob has had his first meeting with Pharaoh, who's amazed by what? What is Pharaoh amazed by? How old he is. So it doesn't seem like, the implication is that Egyptians don't live that long. And it could also be that this is part of the blessing of the promise, that the patriarchs lived a long time. And that wasn't the norm. So if you go back and look at the people, the Canaanite peoples around that family in Canaan, they're not living to 110, 20, 30, 40 years old. Okay. So verse 10, Jacob blessed Pharaoh. There it is, the recipient of the covenant, passing on the blessing. It matters, right? Pharaoh's already been blessed by the covenant. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And so he has blessed Joseph and Joseph's family. And so now you see this sort of formal passing on of the blessing of the covenant, in my view, upon Pharaoh in Egypt because of that statement in the promise in chapter 12 and repeated. So now we're back to the famine. Now there was no food in the land and all the land because the famine was very severe, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished because of the famine. And so now the author is going to take us through in fast forward fashion. He's going to take us through the wholesale transformation in the economics and societal and cultural elements of life in Egypt. Joseph gathered all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, so not only Egypt, but Canaan as well, for the grain which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. When the money was all spent in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, "Give us food, for why should we die in your presence? For our money is gone." Joseph said, "Give up your livestock, and I will give you food for your livestock, since your money is gone." So now they get the livestock. But whatever you think about this, they're going to be happy as they can be about it. So they brought their livestock into Joseph. Joseph, you can see where this is going. Joseph gave them food in exchange for the horses and the flocks and the herds and the donkeys, and he fed them with food in exchange for all their livestock that year. When that year was ended, they came to him the next year and said to him, "We will not hide from my lord, this Hebrew slave, that our money is all spent, and the cattle are my lord's. There is nothing left for my lord except our bodies and our lands." So Joseph says, "Okay, why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for food, and we and our land will be slaves to Pharaoh. So give us seed that we may live and not die, and that the land may not be desolate." So can you imagine the circumstances? have to exist for you to hope that somebody buys you as a slave?
Only way to stay alive.
It's not like Joseph's gonna say, all right, okay, I'll do that. When the famine's over, you guys can all get your land back. Not gonna do that.
It's hard for us to understand that because we live in a society where there is quote unquote no slavery. But it was not uncommon back then. I mean, even the law of Moses provided for Hebrew slaves, you know, but, they also provided that, slave masters had to be gracious, merciful.
How many years in before they sold themselves?
We don't know.
Three or four.
You're kind of going year by year, so we're not even,
It's 2 years have passed by when Jacob
Yeah.
moves down there, so there's still 5 years left of famine. But, we don't know from this statement when this all began, because it could have began before Jacob ever came.
what have I done? Look what I've done.
I have no idea.
So it's not just, Brave.
You think that, you're requiring an update right now?
No.
Right, that, we will.
Second back for removing the router.
You know what he is?
Prob-
Back?
Probably not now, right?
Okay, I didn't see the page back.
Okay, I only have a couple extra pages to go to, so. Okay, so that's their proposal. Now he's not requiring them. They're offering. They're offering everything they have, our land and ourselves.
But didn't he only take 20% of their?
Yeah, that's the way it's
profit to
gonna end
begin
up.
with?
No, that's what's coming. That's what's coming. yeah.
What happened to the rest of it? Didn't people store up their own?
It's Gabe. Also of interest here, you don't see the Israelites, I mean, the Hebrews, whatever you want to call them. They don't have it, their land, they're in the land of Goshen. They're exempt. They're already slaves. They're exempt from this giving up anything. They've been the recipients of all this stuff. So you can see how eventually when the famine is over, it's not going to take them that, it wouldn't be that long before everybody's going, wait a minute. How come they're living so well up there? We don't even have land left. We sold ours to Pharaoh. We're not going to let that happen. So they're going to go do the predictable thing.
But Canaan wasn't in on the selling their land.
Yeah, I know, Canaan's kind of left for dead at this point. Nothing's mentioned there.
But Canaan was like Joseph's family or Jacob's family. They would come down there to buy grain and then return home. So it was more of a merchant deal, whereas the people in Egypt were under the authority of Pharaoh.
Yeah, but now there has to be, when they run out of money, there's starvation in Canaan. Because
Right.
they don't have anything more to, it doesn't say that Egypt has any interest in Canaan.
Right.
So they're gonna take all the money from the Canaanites, but they have no interest, evidently they have no interest in the land.
Do we know, was this the famine caused by drought?
The Nile. It was the Nile,
No.
some upheaval in the Nile,
Well, the animals still had something to eat. Or they would have been dead by now.
corn from the,
So
that's
they're-
where the feed is going. I mean, you know,
They-
or whatever they fed the. What do I know about farming? I just know that when I go to Meijer and I get to pick it up off the shelf, pay for it. It's like the commercial I heard on Quality Dairy did a commercial about their milk, and they said, our milk straight from the factory in Lansing. I thought, oh, that's where milk comes from.
She does have a big,
Yeah, I did not know that that's where milk comes from.
They just processes it in the plant in Washington.
Where does milk come from? Lansing. Oh,
I'm not sure I trust that though.
okay, let's see. So Joseph settled his father and his brothers. and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land. That's for his family. At the same time, the Egyptians are being forced to sell their land, losing their possession.
Do you think that the children of Israel had to give up their livestock too for food?
There's no indication of it. You will receive your guests of Pharaoh. Okay, let's continue here. We want to make sure we finish this chapter.
Down verse 20.
Okay, what else have I got to say about this? So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for every Egyptian sold his field, because the famine was severe upon them. Thus the land became Pharaoh's. So we now see well, let's continue. As for the people, Joseph, removed them to cities from one end of Egypt's border to the other. Only the land of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had an allotment from Pharaoh, and they lived off the allotment which Pharaoh gave them. Therefore they did not sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, behold, I have today bought you and your land for Pharaoh. Now here is seed for you, and you may sow the land. At the harvest you shall give a fifth to Pharaoh, and 4/5 shall be your own for seed of the field, and for your food, and for those of your households, and as food for your little ones. So are they miserable about this? They said, you have saved our lives. Let us find, I guess all you have to do is starve for a couple of years and you get pretty desperate. Let us find favor in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's slaves. So Joseph made a statute concerning the land of Egypt, valid to this day, that Pharaoh should have the fifth. Only the land of the priests did not become Pharaoh's.
5% tax.
So it's a wholesale relocation of the people. You move from an agrarian land-owning society, probably a little bit tribal, that's the right word for it, decentralized, that you have a king over it, but it's decentralized. And now it's all centralized in the hands of a single king. So this is a massive increase in his power, because now the people are going to live in, now you see these urban centers. Everybody lives in an urban center. So you have urban life. And Egypt becomes an urban society.
You know, a more modern day thought, I'm thinking this reminds me of where England ruled over Ireland. Most of the Irish folks were not landowners. English lords were the landowners.
Yep.
And, you know, they had to work the land and they get to keep, you know, X amount for themselves and then had to give the rest to, it's very much similar to this.
Yeah, you had a feudalism
Yeah.
in serfdom in the Middle Ages, where you sold your labor, and effectively you basically sold yourself to the landowner, and you would work the land for him. So you were tied to your landowner. Your life depended on it. And what's interesting about the Black Plague, 1346 and 7, or 1347 and 8, I think, and then the series of plagues after that, it killed so many people. It was indiscriminate, right? Nobody knew the cause. And so the plague would just as easily take out a rich person who owned the land as anybody else. And so what you ended up with is a massive shortage of laborers and vacant land that was no longer worked because there was no landowner. And so it transformed European society and culture like nothing ever has before or since. And now the people, the laborers, their labor becomes more valuable. Wages have to increase because there's less of them, and they have bargaining power. And so all of that enters the picture too.
So with Genesis being the book of beginnings, maybe we're seeing here the beginnings of the whole feudal concept idea.
At least here in Egypt.
Just here, but in contrast to that, Israel, when they became a nation, did not have that feudal system because they had inheritance in the land.
It's interesting also because they received the priests owned land that could not be taken from them because they owned it by virtue of a guarantee from the king. That'll be the opposite of Israel. The Levitical priests will not be owning land. And that will have a dramatic effect on both that tribe, the Levites, and the worship in Israel, because the Israelites will not honor the requirements of the Levitical code to take care of the Levites who were not given a land possession. They will cut them loose. So the Levites will eventually end up in a situation where they become side of a kind of a nomadic band of priests selling their priestly wares to whoever was willing to buy them.
See that in Judges?
To any god. That's the implication. Now, what happened in Judges with Jonathan, that he's just a day in the life of a priest, wandering about, looking for hire, looking for a job. And so this priest, Jonathan, is going to end up in the house of a man named Micah. The tribe of Dan is going to migrate out of its allotment. It's going to abandon its allotment on no direction from God. And on its way up to Laish, however you want to say it, it will kidnap, or no, it will strike a better deal with Jonathan. He will leave Micah. They will go north, and he will start a cult worship up in what will then become Dan on the north edge of Israel. And during the period of the divided kingdom after Solomon dies, that will be one of the two main centers of idolatrous worship in Israel.
If I remember correctly, one of the fascinating things about that story is that this priest, Jonathan, was a son of the Lord.
I don't know anything about that.
Pretty sure that. But it just tells you the depravity of the children of Israel.
So Joseph never forgets that he's working for Pharaoh. His future and his fortune is tied to, and fortunes and of the family is tied to Pharaoh. He's not a patriot. I mean, he is. I mean, I guess he is acting on behalf of the nation, if you want to call Egypt a nation at that point. But really, he's tied to Pharaoh, and his job is to benefit Pharaoh and to enrich Pharaoh. So that's what he does. And it turns out that it will also save Egypt, but Egypt will be completely transformed. What happened to the mention of Ramses? Where was that? I missed Ramses. I don't know if it's worth talking about. Well, it's sure, isn't it?
When Jacob was his name.
Right here. That's what they're calling, I forgot about, I should have mentioned that. That's what they're calling Goshen, the land of Ramses. It's one of those big debates, not a debate. This is an example of where the secular scholars say, aha, see, this is anachronistic. These events happened much later because Ramses wasn't a pharaoh yet. He's later. He's a couple hundred years later. My response is, yeah, unless there was a place called Ramses, and then a king named Ramses. But Ramses, the name was already there. I don't know. You sure about that? But it's that constant attempt to delegitimize with jumping on every little thing. And I'm just going, just because there was a name that existed, I mean, as if the name Ramses just came into being with this king in the 1200s or whenever it was, I don't see it. All right. Verse 27, let's see. Oh, 26, there's this editorial comment right here. Joseph made a statute concerning the land of Egypt valid to this day. So we just transfer from the times of Genesis, from the events, to the times of post-Exodus, when this stuff is being written down. So at the time of Moses, there was this a fifth goes to Pharaoh, this tithe to Pharaoh. Keep going. Now Israel lived in the land of Egypt in Goshen, and they acquired property in it and were fruitful and became very numerous. Boy, is that foreshadowing of the Exodus period, is it not? Right at the end of Genesis here. So Israel is now used right here. Israel, the term is used not about Jacob, but about the nation, which isn't even a nation yet. Israel doesn't come into being until after the Exodus. That's when Israel is Israel. So this is that foreshadowing of what's going to happen, where you have Israel, the nation, in Goshen, being fruitful and very numerous, which is going to be the, oh, can't get there. Cannot get there. Which is going to be the conditions that's going to get Israel in trouble when Exodus opens up. They were numerous and multiplied exceedingly so that the land was full of them, and it made the Egyptians nervous. So that's why Pharaoh wants to oppress them, and he wants to kill all the males, the newborn males, and so forth, to try to slow this down, not realizing that it cannot be slowed down because of the God that they welcomed in, that blessed them so much hundreds of years ago. That God is still there, and he's not acting on behalf of Egypt anymore. He's acting on behalf of his people. And now they're going to inherit the curses of the covenant because of what they're doing to that same people. The tale, like I said last week, it's the tale of two pharaohs. You should have just listened, says Gary to the Pharaoh of the Exodus. You should have just listened, says Moses to the Pharaoh. Did I just use myself in the same sentence with Moses? Me and Moses said to Pharaoh, you should have just listened. But anyway, there it is. This is a very, very clear foreshadowing of what's coming. They're already growing and multiplying. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. Seems like a long time. But his answer is, yeah, but my father and grandfather lived 175 and 180 or something. So, what's 147? So they finally acquire land, a property, but it's not for the first time. But it's not in Canaan, it's in Egypt. Because when they acquire property in Egypt and in Canaan, it's going to be the whole thing. The whole land is going to be their possession. Here, they're just acquiring property. Egyptians have no idea what's coming. And when the time for Israel to die drew near, he called his son Joseph and said to him, please, if I have found favor in your sight, place now your hand under my thigh and deal with me in kindness and faithfulness. Do not bury me in Egypt. Right there. What's the big deal? After everything that Egypt did for him, this is his response. Do not bury me in Egypt. But when I lie down with my fathers, you shall carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burial place. My home is not Egypt. My home is in the place where we're acquiring property. My home is the place that was promised to us in the covenant that God made with my grandfather Abraham. That's where I want to be. But we already have that little piece of property. The cave of Machpelah or whatever it was called that Abraham bought. That's all they had in Egypt. I mean, in Canaan. I'm not sure they acquired hardly anything else. But that little plot of land, that was the down payment. That was the guarantee, the seal of the covenant promise. And he wants to be there because as testimony to his faith that God would bring the whole people back to Canaan. And he said, I will do as you have said. And he said, swear, that's not enough. Swear to me. So he swore to him. Then Israel, second time he uses the name, bowed in worship at the head of the bed. Looks like he's about to die. So he bowed in worship. Who's he worshiping here? Well, that's substituted by the New American Standard. I don't know what the ESV says right there.
He bowed himself.
Yeah, I'm not sure where they added that. They should have left it out. Joseph will do the same thing. Like father, like son. He will also say to his family, to the rest of the brothers, when we all leave here, long after I'm gone, I want you to take my bones. These people had a sense of a future that lived beyond them, and that they were part of it, even though they had no concept of, well, I'm not going to be here, so I don't care. They had no part of that thinking. Their future, they lived on in the future of their posterity. And it's a very hard thing for us to wrap our minds around because of the nomadic, mobile, transient nature of modern life. We're apartment dwellers. We talked about this.
You wonder if they did that with the rest of the brothers too. If they were back to King and buried them there,
Yeah.
There's no mention of it, others.
Yeah, so mentioned, the only one that's mentioned was Joseph.
The only two people in the narrative in this family that express any awareness of or interest in the covenant promise is Jacob and Joseph. The rest of them, you're not going to hear about it. So Egypt is not the permanent home. That's the point. We're going there, but it's temporary. That's not our home. We'll stop there. But man, who would have thought that his destination, he fervently wanted his destination to be a cave back in the land of Canaan that's, got a couple of bodies in it. But that's what he wants.
Just to talk about it earlier, when Pharaoh said, asked Jacob how old he was at the time, 130 years. God had already established that he was going to live past 70 or maybe 80 years old already. But that was right at the flood, and Abraham, he lived 180 years old. Isaac lived 175 or whatever it was. Jacob 147. And Joseph 110. And then you got Moses lived 120 years old, and then Joshua lived 110. So God blessed all the Israelites. Everybody else died at a young age, where these patriarchs, these leaders of it, lived to be. So Joshua basically was the last one to live.
That's stated, yeah.
And lived to be over 100.
110 for him.
Yeah. Most
right.
everybody else was in the 80s or so afterwards.
Okay.
It was like 70.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and stop. So thanks for joining. Nate, Naomi, or whoever's out there. Gabe, appreciate it. Stacy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you too.